I believe the Metaverse is the next chapter for the internet. I am proud to announce that starting today, our company is now Meta.
The Metaverse.
The Metaverse.
The Metaverse.
Let's talk about Metaverse.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Did Mark Zuckerberg really waste 80 billion on the Metaverse? They say that Meta just roughly lost 80 billion on this endeavor, and they're finally going to be turning it off. It's the Metaverse. It's the goofy thing that Mark Zuckerberg tried to tell everyone that was going to be the next form of computing, the next platform. It was supposed to be the successor of the iPhone, but really, this could be one of the most wasteful capital allocations in human history. And we actually covered Meta not long ago about this endeavor and about why it was killing some part of the revenue, because Meta is just mainly 99% of its revenue from advertising. So this was a big chance, a big project to try and change that. But in reality, 80 billion all spent on something that the people could physically see from the start wasn't going to work. But now we have Mark Zuckerberg looking at all of this money and changing gears. So I'll be going over the story of that, what went wrong, what's happening now, and where Meta, or Facebook technically, has pivoted now. We'll be looking at Mark Zuckerberg's attempt to build an AI agent as well to help him be a CEO. Maybe in the future, Meta's just going to be run by AI. Now, also, if you haven't already, check out my Buy Me a Coffee page. This is where I post my newsletters, early access updates that I don't always put in my main videos. If you want to follow along more closely with that, with what I'm researching, what stocks I'm looking at, and what I'm planning to cover next, that's the best place to do it. You can support the channel there for a little extra and get access to extra content at the time, but that is just optional because I do post free content as well on here. So, now we start things off by looking at one of the most possibly biggest capital allocations mistakes in modern history, meaning one of the biggest wastes of money, something that a CEO has done. A decision a CEO made to invest in something that loses a normal amount of money. This price tag, as reported, is $80 billion. And what a waste of money Mark Zuckerberg of Metaverse is. Now, if we go into what happened here, it started about 5 years ago. Mark Zuckerberg proclaimed that the future of Facebook would be the Metaverse. Remember when all that was happening? When they used to name that Facebook and they switched it to Meta? That was part because the focus was on the Metaverse. He renamed the company just because of this project. See, this was Mark Zuckerberg's new shiny toy. It was something that he was excited about, so he repivoted the entire company just to go for it. But there was also a couple of other reasons. It wasn't just because he was excited about it. He also changed the name of the company because Facebook didn't have a great brand anymore. Anytime it was Facebook building threads or doing anything else, the Facebook name was attached to it, and that had baggage for him and for the company. So Meta also represented a fresh start, something new. There was no brand baggage with Meta, but regardless, he changed the name and focused entirely on the Metaverse. Based in virtual reality, it would be immersive, digital world where people could work, play, and meet up. Which is crazy to say that you could think that everybody would jump on this new idea, put a headset on, and basically see other people that you could actually just see in real life. Now, if we scroll down a little bit, we can see here that Meta had laid off about 10% of its employees in Reality Labs. Now, this is crazy. Mark Zuckerberg renamed his company to Meta, but now he's actually laying off 10% of his employees in the division that works on the Metaverse. Like, that is crazy. Now, I just don't understand. Why would you rename a company just for a project that in a few years' time you just ain't gonna keep going? But this was supposed to be his flagship, Horizon Worlds, a digital universe where people socialize through their avatars. This was turning its focus away from virtual reality. So, this Horizon Worlds app, which I've never got into, I had a slight interest in it from the beginning. From what I've read and from what I've seen, it's basically like World of Warcraft but in VR. And it also reminds me of Ready Player One, that film, where they're just running around trying to do things on this like little treadmill. You know, you put a headset on, you walk around in digital world, and you talk to avatars. It's like real life, but an avatar feel to it. It just seemed like a really bad idea, though. That was why, from the beginning, I was skeptical on the Metaverse. This is something that I thought would be good, but very hard to pull off. But regardless, we have Horizon Worlds. Now, 5 years later, Meta delivered a near-death blow. On Tuesday, the company said people would no longer be able to access the immersive world through virtual reality headsets. Now, they have now kind of gone back from this. So on Wednesday, they've said that a few people that liked Horizon Worlds and actually like to use it, they've now said that it would support the existing VR apps but not add any new ones. So basically, they're just saying the developers aren't going to keep building it. They're just going to keep servers running for them, but there won't be any updates and there won't be any progress. So, in other words, Zuckerberg's original concept of the metaverse is effectively over. The VR world that he spent billions on is basically done. And the thing I want to highlight about the metaverse, now I've got a video that I found that I can remember very vividly watching myself thinking how awkward this is. But this was all for the metaverse. This was their big moment. But it was just unnatural, But Mark Zuckerberg has always been known for unnatural videos. But in this case, it's the woman in the video as well. I don't know who she was. I don't know who she is. But she's equally unnatural in this video as well as him. Maybe even more. So let's just head over and let's put on the video and let's see what they were trying to say and trying to be sold for us 4.5 years ago.
AR ecosystem. So the game studios can keep building and gaming creators can keep creating. Now, Deb from our studios team is joining me. Deb, do you want to take us through some of the exciting games in the pipeline for Quest?
Absolutely. Over the years, we've had the opportunity to work with incredible developers like Vertigo Games, the studio behind fan favorite Arizona Sunshine.
I love Arizona Sunshine. That game basically got me and my friends through the first few months of the pandemic.
That's awesome. If you enjoyed that, Mark, I think you'll be excited that we're partnering with Vertigo on 5 more great games from Deep Silver and others. We'll share more about this lineup very soon.
Nice. What else is coming?
Well, the metaverse is constantly evolving. So one of the most important aspects will be live service games that launch updates and new downloadable content regularly, like Echo VR, Beat Saber, Onward, Pistol Whip, and more. We're focused on this a lot right now, making sure games can build out active communities. Beat Saber has a passionate community.
Oh, I love Beat Saber.
So do I. And Beat Saber just passed $100 million in
So you kind of get the gist. So, and she kind of reminds me of like a really forced character, like that Sims game, that every movement is over exaggerated. But either way, when we look at this, this was a pitch of the metaverse. You can see looking back how bad it was. The idea was dead from the onset. It was something that I made public, that videos saying like this to tank Meta, and it did. The Meta stock dropped. Like, I can remember going back and I think a few years ago, if I could find it, I'll put it on the screen on my personal Twitter, that I didn't believe that this was the right move. Like, not everybody could jump straight from their iPhone into a headset. Like, there was so much, I think, scale, like, because of what happened with dot-com bubble, like, there were so many people worried. Like, why would it take over? Like we are now with robots. Like, we're so scared about what if the robots take over. And I think this is what the same was here. But the problem is, when this company was so focused on cash flows, the year of deficiencies, what caused the stock to regain was to go up 5x X. It's because the focus on Metaverse is exactly what tanked Meta's stock. It was killing the cash flow, and investors like the cash flow from growing. Now, as a Meta shareholder, you may be looking at this and saying, "Oh, well done. Thank goodness that they're going to get rid of this." See, I'm glad they've done it. Now they're not down the line, because I'd rather than just say, right, it hasn't worked, let's cut it off now. So they can stop wasting money and they can generate a lot of earnings and cash flow. The problem is now they've just changed, it's what the money's going into. And as you can see on the screen, instead of going towards the metaverse, Mark Zuckerberg has found his new object, which is artificial intelligence. Now, he's not renaming the company, but he's putting even more financial emphasis into AI. Even Meta, that has lost $80 billion on this endeavor, the metaverse and virtual reality remain niche interests among hobbyists and some businesses. Now, some other companies that you may have heard of, like Roblox and Fortnite, have become very popular. Especially Roblox, which is now extremely popular, and the game engagement levels the total time spent is now approaching Netflix. So Roblox became the metaverse that Mark Zuckerberg wanted to create but failed. Now, Mark Zuckerberg has changed gears. Meta has all gone in to artificial intelligence. He proclaimed a new focus centered around superintelligence, a form of godlike AI that could be an ultimate personal companion. So they're basically winding down the whole metaverse thing and moving to the AI. And again, I was never once bullish on metaverse at all. I don't actually have a headset. I was never fully interested in. I was just on the fence with it. And I never thought it replaced the iPhone. I don't think it would ever have been realistic. Even people putting on headsets and seeing 6 monitors, I don't think people want to sit there with a headset on all day long. While they're working in an office, walking around the tube, I'd rather have something real. And none of this has really stuck. Now, there's a few key takeaways what we can have from this. The waste of money. First of all, what went wrong with Mark Zuckerberg's strategy? Another of things went wrong. The strategy overall was too forced. It was too much of a brute force for people. It was Mark Zuckerberg trying to tell and try and create this paradigm shift out of thin air. Not something that happened organically or just took off by itself. He was trying to use his financial power, the power of Facebook, to force a new shift. And that just wasn't how it's going to happen. They never happen that way. Look at OpenAI and ChatGPT. That wasn't forced. They released a model. It was just their first one. They put it out publicly and people tried it and it turned out to be a really good product. And it went viral. Millions of people used it and the next thing, it happened organically. It was one company, a small lab of people, that created a product that took off. Now, what Mark Zuckerberg tried to do was force everyone to use a product that no one really wants to use. And they put enough money behind it. Enough marketing, lowering the cost, subsidizing it, trying to make it work. And then the wrong way about it. There was no demand for the metaverse. He was not meeting a consumer demand. In most cases, when you're looking at products, they really take off. They lower friction. They make things easier for the consumer. Look at AI. The reason it took off is because it made things easier. You type in a question, you get the answer directly. That was easier than a traditional search. See, on the other hand, what Meta did with the metaverse was try and force consumers into something with higher friction. They tried to force people to wear a headset which was already disconnecting and uncomfortable. It's harder to physically put it on, harder to use, and then on top of that, every part of it has more friction. Instead of using your fingers, you have controllers. Even your hand isn't as natural as real life. Everything about it was just harder. And if we compare that to the iPhone, people love the iPhone because it makes it easier, not harder. Doing things that we were already doing, but faster and simpler. You just don't need to put a headset on. You just pull it out of your pocket. So when I look at the mistakes Mark Zuckerberg made with the metaverse, it was incredibly forced. Now, this was probably a failed project from the beginning. And when I took a look at his capital allocation decision, it was one of the biggest wastes of money I've ever seen. Wasted tens of billions of dollars. But at the same time, he's the type of leader that he will make big bets, but sometimes they are wrong, and sometimes they do work. Now, if anybody can remember this, now I know they are thinking of doing a comeback of this, but Jeff Bezos did the exact same thing. Amazon wasted a lot of money on the Fire phone. Now, which was a complete failure. But they also had huge bets that work, with the AWS, Prime, and the logistics network. I see the same characteristics with Mark Zuckerberg. He wants to go with the big things. He doesn't want to be a slow, predictable company. He wants better to be part of the future. He wants to be the part of the next shift. I look at the move from Metaverse to AI, and I think this is probably one where he might actually be right. AI already has a demand. It's proven useful. It's not forcing people into a new world. It's improving the one they already use. And because of that, the shift has much higher success. We've already seen returns from AI. Meta used AI to improve ads after Apple changed tracking rules. They used AI to compete with TikTok. They used AI to improve their algorithms. They used AI for things, for results, not just ideas. So when people talk about 80 billion wasted, I understand because I see a founder and CEO making big bets. Now, not all of them do work, but if one does, this payoff could be huge. Because Meta platform is shutting down the whole universe which has ended to be one of the most expensive experiments we've ever seen from a tech company. Billions are spent, years of focus, and in the end, it never really caught on. But at the same time, this is what happens when you have a founder running the company and thinking long term. Sometimes they get it wrong, sometimes they get it right. But now Meta is betting that AI is this one that's actually going to work. Now, we are going to see how this is played out. I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on it. But as you can see, it's branded as failed metaverse, and it's going to be making a massive bet on the AI infrastructure, with capital expenditures projected to reach 115 to 135 billion in 2026 versus 69 billion in 2025. Now, I'm not quite sure if that is going to be the killer blow in terms of the capex going higher and higher. Now, a lot of people don't like people spending on capex, but the AI infrastructure needs to be built to support all this AI. So, if you want to follow along with that and what I'm looking for each week, to make sure to check out my Buy Me a Coffee page, go and subscribe, go and leave a like, go and hit the subscribe button, comment down below if you want me to try and do a similar style of this, or go back to my PowerPoints. I thought I'd just try something new today, and yeah, if you did enjoy it, then of course I'm glad you did. But just comment down below as well if there's any other stocks that you want me to go and check out. Now, I am going to try and get better and better at these. I know it won't be overnight, but I just really hope you guys do enjoy these videos. And I hope to see you on the next one. Goodbye!